Well, I'm finally back in my shop. I'm gonna try to get this root rake finished. I haven't got to work on it in probably a little over a week because I've been busy, and I've actually been trying to find a piece of metal I need to finish this thing, and I can't find it anywhere. So I made a big miscalculation on how much metal I had. The metal I make the bushings out of anyway. Where I messed up, I made these bushings too wide, or wider than they needed to be, because I made them the same as what was on my bucket that I rebuilt. And the reason they were wide is because it had holes drilled through the bushing and the pin that a bolt went through to hold the pins in place. And I'm going to do a different design on this one. What I'm planning on doing is, say like this is the pin, I'm going to drill and tap a hole and then make a plate that goes on it that bolts on to hold the pin in. And so in that case, I wouldn't have needed this big wide bushing. And, you know, it would have saved me enough to make another one. But I can't find any more 3-inch cold roll steel nowhere. I've called every steel supplier around here, and nobody has it. The closest thing they can come up with is 6-inch, and that'd be a lot of turning down. I have the third one in the lathe, and I've already drilled the center hole in it. So what I've decided to do is take this 2.5-inch pin, and I'm going to weld around the pin and build it up to over 3 inches, and then turn it back down. And that way I can make a, you know, duplicate of these. And I guess I could cheat and make a smaller one, but it won't look the same, and it'd just aggravate me. So I'm going to go ahead and weld that up and turn it down. I wish I'd have, you know, thought ahead of time on that, but I didn't. So another thing I've decided to do too is I'm going to cut this thing down to 4 teeth instead of 5. Take some of that weight off of it, because I got to thinking on this thing, it's going to be primarily used, you know, up in the hills and on slopes, and I want it to be a little bit more stable. And what I'll wind up doing, and later on I'll build me another one and make it out of thinner steel and make it wider. So I really want this one to be for real heavy, rugged use, something I can't tear up, or would be harder to tear up. And then I'll make me a thinner one for light duty work. So I was noticing after I welded this on, if you've seen the last video, seen how the teeth pulled. And what happened was when I welded under here, it caused this plate to warp. And it's mostly warped right here. So I'm going to take this tooth off in this part of the plate, and that should even it back up. Well, I got it cut off, but I've messed up and I've switched my camera over to photo instead of video. So all it did was take pictures. But, you know, like I said, it's cut off now. I just have to grind the welds off down there on that piece of pipe and separate it. I doubt I can break the welds with this, but I'm going to try it anyway. So that's why I just tack welded these pieces here in, just in case I had to separate it. So make it a whole lot easier. Okay, so now that I'm done cutting that thing down, I'm gonna move on to building this up. Now I'm really dreading this. It's gonna be a lot of welding, and it's 89 degrees today, so it's really hot in here. Okay, I'm gonna keep welding on this thing and get it built up, and when I'm done I'll start recording again. I've almost got the weld up thick enough where I can turn it down to the right size, but I'm just under where it needs to be, but I ran out of wire, so I'm gonna have to go get another roll. I started out trying to make my welds pretty and going in straight lines and all that stuff, and after about 10 minutes I said to heck with that and just started welding. It's too hot in here to pay that kind of attention to it. I've got this thing welded up to 3 1/4 inches, so hopefully that's enough to turn it down without any weld showing in it, but I may have to touch it up a little bit after I get close to the final size. But it's really hot right now, so I'm gonna let it cool down, and I'm gonna work on the 3rd bushing and try to get it finished. Like I said, I had 2 of them done, and I got to this point on the 3rd bushing, so I'm gonna finish this, and then I'll go back to that other one. I just done a real quick sharpen on this big drill bit because it's got some bad chips in it right here, so there's no point in spending a lot of time with it. But I'm sure I changed the pitch a little bit, so I hope it didn't over drill the hole. Now I'm still at 38.94 millimeters, so I'm good there. Just have to trim it out just a little bit. I pretty much got that one on the first cut. I went just a tiny bit over what it should have been, but that's good enough. So there's the third bushing done. And now this thing is cooled down enough, I'm going to put it in the lathe, and hopefully I've got enough weld on this thing to get what I need to make another bushing. I don't like this thing sticking out that far, so I'm going to lightly clean up the end of this and drill a center hole and use the center. I mean, I don't think it'd go anywhere, but I'm not taking any chances. Well, I missed the record button, but I got it center drilled and put my big center in, so it's ready for me to start turning this thing down. Well, I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. My welds turned out pretty even. I was afraid I'd have, a lot of high spots and low spots across the length of it. But it's turned out pretty good. I've got a couple places I'm sure I'll probably have to touch up once I get down to 3-inch, but it's not bad. It's been a long time since I've done a shaft weld build-up like this. The last time I'd done something like this was probably 30-some years ago, right before my dad died. It was about 30 years ago, a couple of years before my dad passed away. He had been contracted to build up the end of a shaft on a rock crusher that the bearing had gone out on, and it completely destroyed the end of the shaft. And he needed help welding that up, and because it was probably about 200 feet off the top of that rock crusher to the ground. On the front side where that bearing had to go. And I helped him weld that up, and it took me probably 4 days of welding to weld that up, because the shaft was probably 12 or 13 inches thick. And he needed help with that, because that was back when my dad was starting to get sick. And so I welded it up, and then he made the tooling he needed to turn it back down. And he worked on that while I was welding, so it worked out okay. So like I said, it's been a long time since I've done any welding build up like this. I'm going to finish turning this down to 3-inch, and I'm not going to record it though. But if there's any places in it that's not real bad, I'll just leave them alone. But any deep places I'll go ahead and patch up and then turn it down. But we'll just have to see what it looks like after I turn it down. So I got it down to 3-inch, and there's a couple of pretty deep pits. I was just going to leave them alone, but I think I'm going to go ahead and weld them up, fill them up, and then turn it back down and polish them a little bit. I could just leave them alone, but it'd drive me crazy if I don't fix them. Okay, let's turn this thing down and see what it looks like. Okay, so I've got my bushings done now, and here is my material that I'm going to use to make the pins out of. This stuff is actually 45 millimeters, so I've got to turn it down. And I had to cut it a little bit long so I could put it in the lathe. And I hate to waste any of it because this stuff costs so much. It's ridiculous how much steel costs anymore. But I'm going to start working on these pins and try to get them done. I'm going to have to go ahead and order one of those adjustable tool holders. This is a second cutter insert that I've broke today, trying to face off a piece of metal, because you got to have it just right in the center or it breaks the tip. Plus these cheap little cutter tips, I just don't know if they're going to work or not. Kind of worried about cutting this because I've never done anything this long on this lathe, and where that tailstock is not the original one, you know, I've explained it before, somebody made this base for it, so I don't know how accurate it is. it could be off, you know, from left to right. So I don't know if it's going to turn right or not. So I think what I'm going to try to do is just barely skim this piece of metal. And maybe that way I can tell if it's going to be out or not. Yeah, it's out just a little bit. It's not much because it skimmed the rust down here and it skimmed it up here just a little bit. So it's closer to the to me on the far end. I don't know, maybe I can adjust this over just a tad and push it back. I may make it worse. Well, I'm probably going to make this worse, but I'm going to try to adjust it a little bit. Try this again. Okay, so I took a real light cut down the full length of this pin, and it looks like it's real close. If it's off, it's not by much. They're not going to have to be that precise anyway. You know, like I've said before, that quick connect on that excavator is wore out anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go ahead and get these two pins done. I'm not going to record it because it's just going to be long and boring. And when I get everything done and I start welding it together, I'll start recording again. So I finally have all my parts done, and I've decided what I'm going to do. I'm going to put everything together on this piece of plate steel. That way it'll be good and flat, and I can hold it where it needs to be and put it in place. And what I'll do is I'll put cross braces across the top of it and the sides to hold it where it needs to be, and tack weld everything in place. And here's my diagram that I've drew up to show my spacing. And once I get it all tacked in where it should be, I'll go ahead and put it on top of the root grappler and then weld it in solid. I think that's about as straight as I'm going to be able to get it. But, you know, like I've said before, it don't have to be perfect, but I want it to be as close as possible anyway. So I'm going to take these pieces of scrap that I used when I put the teeth on the root rake, and I'm going to weld them on here like this. I'll probably put, say, like one here and over there, and then a couple maybe down here, just to make sure it don't move. And then I'll tack it onto the root rake itself at the bottom and get some real good tacks on it and start welding it. That way it shouldn't move once I start welding. And what I'll do is I'll just skip back and forth from side to side, welding a little bit at a time, so hopefully it won't pull. Well, hopefully that's tacked up good enough where it won't move when I do the final welds on the root rake itself. But I'm thinking I'm probably just going to go ahead and drill these bushings and drill all the way through the pin. Since I put these wide bushings in, it'd just be simpler to do and probably be a little quicker. And then, you know, that way I know the pin won't turn in here. And if I was to drill and put a plate on it, then I'd have to figure out a way to make a locking mechanism so the pin don't spin. So it'd just be some extra steps that I really don't need to do. Well, I've made a minor boo-boo here. I was planning on drilling these bushings in the pin in the drill press, but I've already tacked them in place, so I'm not going to take that back out. So I'll have to drill it with the hand drill. I just hope I've got enough length on the drill bit, because I'm going to have to deal with these the space here on the ear. Hopefully I've got enough room to do it. Well, them bushings are harder than I thought they were. That's a brand new bit. Let me sharpen this thing and see if it does any better.
Sharpening the drill bit did not work out as planned.
We finally got a nice cool morning and it's pouring the rain, so I think I'm going to try to work on this thing and get it done today. It's been a long process. I wanted to get it done a long time ago, but things keep coming up, so I'm going to try to get it done today. I've got a bunch of braces welded on it, so hopefully it won't try to move and twist on me when I start welding. So probably what I'm going to do is just weld a little bit on each side and try to keep it from going crazy on me. So that part's all welded up, and it looks like it did pretty good. It didn't warp, but like I said, it's not cooled down yet. They're still spinning good, so that's a good sign. I'll just have to wait and let it cool down a little bit, and hopefully it don't move. That's usually when the metal starts moving, is when it starts cooling down. I went ahead and beveled this outside edge with the torch off camera so I can get a little bit better penetration. I didn't want to do both sides because I was afraid I'd cut into it too much, because I want a good flat surface for this thing to sit on so it matches up good with the top of that root rake. I was kind of noticing when I was welding that every once in a while my welder started sounding funny, and it started welding kind of strange. And I got to looking when I moved the welder, my ground cable wasn't even clipped in. It was just sitting in there like that. So it's a wonder it didn't burn my connection up. It wasn't even locked. But I guess that explains why it was acting so strange. I got it dead on right in the first try. Okay, I guess it's ready to weld. I'm gonna finish welding this thing up, and then I'll cut these things off and we'll see how it looks. So I'm gonna call this project done for now. I've got plenty of weld on it. I guess the welds could look better, but they're not going to break. And if I weld any more, it's going to pull on these ears. They've already moved on me since I cut these braces off. Good thing I put these pins in before I did cut the braces off, because you know, I'd slid them in by hand with no problem, and as soon as I cut those off, it moved. And now they're in there real tight. The only way I can move them is with a hammer. So I'm going to have to figure out some way to make a locking mechanism so the pins don't turn in the bushings. And maybe just put a clip pin in the pin itself. I ran into a problem because I tried to drill these bushings and I burnt my drill bit up, and I only got a 1/4 inch deep. So apparently that metal is a lot harder than I thought it was. I was wondering why I was burning up so many cutter bits on the lathe, but now I know it's hardened steel. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this thing on the excavator and use it, and that way I can get some use out of it, and then I'll decide later on what I'm gonna do with the pin problem. It's no big deal if I wear the pins out. I'll just make new ones, but I don't want to mess these bushings up. But like I said, I think it's hardened steel anyway, so it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. But I'm going to get this thing loaded up on the truck and take it up there and put it on the excavator.